How do we keep that Christmas spirit alive in our families post-Christmas?
Yeah, I would just say two things. First, like I said, books like the Magnificat, which orient your whole prayer life toward, not just in the Advent season, but all the way from Christmas to Epiphany, and to the baptism of the Lord. That is a real help, is to get something like a Magnificat or reflections that talk about these things, in there. But the first thing you mentioned, Doug, of having that childlike heart, of having that sense of mystery, to go back, little kids have valid religious experiences. There's no question about it. When I was a little kid, I used to go into my church in Hawaii, Sacred Heart Church. I'd look at those stained glass windows, and I would look and look and look. I was absorbed into the mystery of sacredness and God's goodness, and I just loved it. Not just the beauty of the colors and the window and so forth, but the sacredness, the mystery, the fascination, the numinous that was pouring through that window. We'd had a big creche which we put on our big living room table, and I'd look at that creche, I'd look and look and look at that creche, right, on that table, and I'd be just, again, it was right. It was my family. The mystery, the sacredness, the fascination, the numinous, along with the beauty, right? The child makes no distinctions. The child doesn't say, wait a minute, what about this passage over here? And might be a contradiction over here. The child doesn't say anything like that. Child says instead, this is right. Or the child just looks at it with complete fascination, absorbed in the numinous mystery, right? Absorbed in the goodness of God, in that rightness of God coming as a little child, just like him. There's almost that absorption, that goodness of Mary and all of her maternity, just, coming right out at him with the sheep and the goats and everything else. Maybe not goats, but the sheep and the cows and everything else, right?
We'll leave the goats behind.
Along in the thing. Yeah, I leave the goats behind. But I mean, I think, the childlike heart is perfect. It's that idea of just letting yourself be fascinated by the sacredness, the love, the goodness of the Holy Family, of Mary, of Jesus as a child, of the whole creche scene, of Joseph overlooking it, and even the farm animals. I mean, the whole thing, there's something absolutely good, sacred, and holy about this, that you just let yourself go. That's what I do. I become a little kid again, and I look at that stuff, and I don't doubt my way out of it. I just look at, is this typical of God? And I'll just conclude with this one thought. I had this student when I was teaching at Georgetown University. Great, wonderful student, but in all sincerity, he came up to me and he says, look, we're so insignificant. I mean, let's just suppose for just a second, and at the time they thought maybe that the universe might be somewhere in the neighborhood, of 18 billion light years in radius. Okay, but I mean, that's so huge. 18 billion light years, and of course, Earth is just a little tiny planet, and we're in a little tiny, sun, amidst bigger and better suns and bigger, galaxies. We're in a kind of a medium galaxy and so forth, and the guy goes, I mean, we're so insignificant. I mean, why would God pick this? And I said, just think about this for one moment. Love is humility. Power, if real power is love, then infinite power can also be infinite gentleness and infinite humility. Wouldn't it be just like an infinitely loving God, instead of coming to the biggest and best galaxy, you come to a medium galaxy? And wouldn't it be just like God, and who's infinite love, to come to a star that's kind of in the middle and not the biggest and best star? And wouldn't it be just like God to come to a medium-sized to small-sized planet like Earth instead of a big planet like Saturn or Jupiter?
Right.
And wouldn't it be just like God, instead of coming to Egypt or Babylon or Rome, one of the big aces, in the civilization world, to come to Israel of all
Right.
places? And wouldn't it be just like God, instead of coming to the head city of Israel, Jerusalem, he's going to come to Bethlehem? And wouldn't it just be like an unconditionally loving God to come to a stable instead of a palace, and to be born with the cows and the sheep? Wouldn't that be just like an unconditionally loving God, to be born
Right.
as a baby
Right.
instead of as the great mega warrior? Wouldn't it
Exactly.
be just like the unconditionally loving God?
And wouldn't it-
And I would say absolutely.
Right.
It's totally consistent.